The John Lebang Show has been known to make people laugh, sing, think, scream, throw things in rage, and generally lose their minds. Listener discretion is advised.
Worldwide and out to the greater universe, you're listening to the John Lebang Show.
Greetings, Earthlings from all over the globe, ones that are on lockdown, ones that are essential, all the politicians, anybody else who might be tuned in, even the ones that are from a distant galaxy. Thank you for tuning in. My name is John Lebang, as you may know by the title of the show. So we've had another interesting week of news that has been bantied about on the headlines, and a lot of things have happened. Everything from Trump's new Space Force flag to a whole bunch of other items related to the old COVID operation and some other things. But what is going to be dominating the early part of the show right now, anyways, is the subject of masks. You see, there's been a great debate on the social medias about masks and how useful they are and how effective they are and what they can do and what they can't do. I will tell you that I've had, just to give you a little background into why I'm weighing in on this conversation, I spent nearly 30 years selling equipment like this, personal protection equipment, in the field that I've I've made a living at, because all the extracurricular things here, like the radio and everything, don't pay your way through life very well unless you get lucky. So you have to do a real job to get by in life, and I spent almost 30 years in the coatings industry. And when you're dealing with coatings, you also are dealing with personal protection equipment. Everything from masks to the N95 straight up until the cartridge masks and the Tyvek suits and all the different things that relate to personal protection equipment. I've had extensive training over the years on not only what kind of masks do what, but when you get into the respirator cartridge masks, those you need to actually be able to fit people properly, or they're not going to work to their full potential. So with that being said, I've heard people who may have a little background in it, and plenty who don't have any background, and they have an agenda. They don't want anybody wearing masks. And there are arguments in public. You can even see it. I've seen it the other day when somebody tried to enter the building, and there were people like backing away and getting upset that one person didn't wear masks as they're going out in public, even though it's being encouraged by the government and, the authorities. Now, with my background in this subject matter, I'm not an expert, but my training is there, and I know at least the general basics of what masks work in for what, and so on. I've also, when I left that field for a little bit, spent some time in another field that required me to even know more personal protection knowledge, as far as I had to deal with nuclear gauges and other things of that nature, that I had to actually pass tests, and become certified in these areas. So I have a little knowledge of this. I can tell you from my personal knowledge, before I jump to that, basically a mask, for those people who don't really understand the concept, a mask is a filter. That is the essence of it. Hardly anything different than the air filter on your car or the air filter on your furnace. They do essentially the same type of things. They filter out, of course, particulates that could be damaging, in the event of a furnace or something. They're trying to keep the environment clean, and that's the basic idea behind the mask. And I'll put it on right now so you can see on the video. And we're doing a video of this because I want to kind of get people some knowledge on what this is and kind of get rid of all the BS surrounding it. Now, being in the field that I have a background in, I sold hundreds of thousands of these throughout my lifetime, thousands of the cartridge masks and all that, and we're hearing people who have no background in this at all jumping to conclusions or believing stuff they have no right to believe without checking into it. First off, they're telling you don't wear the masks because you're going to get, you're going to be breathing in your own carbon dioxide. And that's bad for you. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to assure you that I've sold enough of these to people who are in the drywall industry and the spraying industry that have wore this for hours upon hours while they're doing their particular profession. And nobody has ever gotten sick over the carbon breathing in their own carbon monoxide because it's a filter. It's filtering out stuff. It's still letting plenty of oxygen in and plenty of carbon dioxide out, okay? So the idea that this is going to make you sick because you're wearing this. I know gentlemen that do drywall on a constant basis, and that's actually drywall. And this is much different than what's going on in the world where you're just walking around. In drywall, all this stuff gets caked up. So when they're breathing, even with the caking on, they're still getting enough oxygen to do their job. Otherwise, there would be people all over the industry passing out at random, and they would have changed this item by now over lawsuits because the item didn't work properly. It made you sick. There's a reason this is on the market, and it's been tested, tried, and true. You're not going to die from having this on all day. With that being said, the other misnomer is that, you shouldn't be doing it because it's taking away your rights and it's conditioning you into living a certain way, going out in public, getting you prepared for them vaccinating you. All this stuff that I'm fine, I understand where they're coming from, but the wearing a mask is, in my opinion, a personal choice. Now, if you're doing it because the government is telling you to do it and you're not thinking, that's one thing. But if you think this through, that's fine. Now, here's the problem with the government's plan. The N95, from all I could find on the internet, all the research I've done in all my history, is the bare minimum to protect you against the COVID-19 virus. The little virus that floats around and can get in your eye and get in your nose and in your lungs. The N95 is the bare minimum. Everything I've looked at, ladies and gentlemen, those little homemade masks aren't filtering out what the N95 or better would do. Not even close. Because the N95 not only has an outer filter, which is very much kind of a thicker fabric, but it has layers upon layers of paper, a filter here, to catch particulates on the way in. And the one I'm displaying right here is the N95 with the cool flow. Now, I don't even know if this would be considered the proper one to use for the COVID, because there is one without the cool flow. This one allows a little cooler air to come through. But either one work, as far as I know, except I don't know if it gets through the cool flow as well. They're not clear about that, is what I'm saying. They're not clear about if if the cool flow is any difference or not, makes any difference. So but with that being said, again, we have layers upon layers of filter in here. The little mask that they're telling you to wear, the little scarves and all that, that is in no way filtering out the air properly, or at least as efficiently as these are. And in all honesty, ladies and gentlemen, after about 40 hours of use, the N95 greatly diminishes in its effectiveness on how it filters out, because that stuff becomes more caked on. Now, that's in a standard, when they're doing drywall or they're spraying, some kind of latex paint on the wall, because you definitely don't want to be using the N95 if you're spraying oils or lacquers or any of that kind of stuff. That you definitely need the cartridge mask. But if you're just doing latexes, some people will use this and they do just fine with it all day. They may die early, who knows? But, there's been no major lawsuits that I can find on the N95 mask and how it has worked inside the industries that I'm related to. People in the paint industry have been using these for their whole life, 20, 30 years, never have just passed out or died because they haven't gotten enough oxygen. So that is a misnomer. Anybody who's spreading that, they either are ignorant to that or they are just outright spreading false fake news, and you should just eliminate even watching those sources. Those little face masks that you get, that you make, the personal ones, they cannot be as effective as this, because there are layers upon layers, just like your furnace, how it's layered, just like your car filter. They do that because that's the most efficient way to filter out particulates. And this is the bare minimum, N95. Realize that, folks. This is the bare minimum. So those masks that you're wearing that aren't these N95s, they're probably not doing a great job. They're probably far less effective at protecting you. They might be all right at protecting others from you pushing out your particulates, which is something you should consider while going out, because you can make people paranoid these days. So when people tell you don't wear the masks, they, as far as I can tell, they're having an agenda. They don't want to wear them because they're too proud, they're too special to wear a mask. That's fine, whatever. But if you feel like when you go out in public, ladies and gentlemen, and you want to wear a mask, don't let anybody embarrass you about it. Just realize that if you're not wearing the N95 mask or better, then you're probably not really diminishing very much, your chances of catching the COVID particulate, or any other for that matter. But if it makes you feel better, then fine. And if it makes other people feel better, and that's one of my concerns, is, we're dealing with a lot of people who, some are worried about it, some aren't. Well, let's be considerate to each other when it comes to these type of things. I'm not telling you at all. If you're doing it only because the government is telling you to do it, then you're doing it for the wrong reasons. But if you're wearing a mask, which I do when I go into a supermarket, or when I go to a couple places when I know there's going to be a lot of people, I will wear a mask to protect myself from them. That's it. It's a precautionary measure. I'm not doing it because the government told me to do it. I'm doing it because I know, and I have the N95 masks because I had purchased these before everybody else went into a panic over them. I knew it was coming. You see things coming down the lines, you just prepare yourself. That's it. And, well, now while everybody's wearing the other masks, or totally not even caring about wearing a mask. I can go out in public, feel confident that I'm not going to, I'm reducing my chances because, again, folks, these are not 100% perfect. They filter out a great deal of stuff, but they, things can get through the cracks, wherever you smile, you could plus you can let this stuff in through your eyes according to them, folks, according to them, whoever they are, the ones that run this whole thing. Anyways, I think I've gone on long enough about the masks. If you have any questions specifically on the masks, and, feel free to send me comments, leave me comments or whatever, and I'll get back to you because we gotta stop the BS about this, okay? If you want to wear a mask to protect yourself, if you feel that makes you feel better by going out in public and wearing a mask, fine. Don't let anybody discourage you, okay? Now, realize that the mask you wear may not be the most effective at doing what you're trying to do, but if it makes you feel better, fine. And if you don't want to wear a mask, I guess that's your freedom. Just hopefully you don't help spread this stuff if it's possibly spread that way, because a lot of people, it's a hoax and all that, whatever. They don't take other things into consideration. Thanks, folks. Let me know what you think in the comments and in email or whatever, and we'll be right back.
Hey, Uncle Shady, where are they going? Hey, you, get back here. The John Lebang Show will be right back. Are you in need of commercial or residential window cleaning? Do you need your office cleaned? Maybe custodial work? How about some gutter cleaning? If you do, then call Pane in the Glass. For a beautiful shine that's crystal clear, call Pane in the Glass. You can find them on Facebook at Pane and the Glass. You're listening to the John Lebang Show.
It's better than an eye-reader convention.
All right. Welcome back, my friends. Thank you for staying tuned in. Well, it looks like the uprisings are beginning to happen as predicted all over the globe. Germany's really starting to take to the forefront as the media is getting behind these because they love seeing the people get all riled up. I mean, that gives them beautiful ratings when they are probably getting a little bit cut back on their ratings because of the constant COVID coverage. People are getting tired of it, so they need other things to happen. So we might as well add in COVID with some riots, and that's exactly what they're getting right now. You see, and this is not just going to be relegated to this place and that place. This is coming to a city near you. You see, this is all part of the reaction that we talked about back, in March when we did the perfect Hegelian storm. This is the reaction phase of the Hegelian dialectic. The powers that be are most likely encouraging these demonstrations to foment a greater divide amongst the people. You see, once violence has begun, well, they will have the moral high ground shift to them, instead of right now the people having a little bit of moral high ground because their rights have been slowly eroded during the whole COVID-19 operation. And these people that are going to be, we'll say, rioting or causing disruptions with the government, they're going to be labeled on some level as terrorists. Maybe not right off, but down the line, we'll start seeing when the larger groups start happening and the Antifas and all of them start burning down neighborhoods, which won't take long if this continues. They're slowly trying to open it up, but the food isn't going to just come back. And once people realize that things, even though seemed like they were going back to normal, really didn't get back to normal because there's certain things that just won't go back to normal so fast, and like the meat and some other things. But trust me, it's all part of the planned response that they knew was going to come. They look at the long term when they're dealing with these situations, and when they make certain moves to position themselves to be in a better place when all this does come down. Some other news that not quite hitting the mainstream, but, well, let's talk about it. The magnetic pole is rapidly moving because of some, what scientists are calling blobs. You see, now researchers out there in the United Kingdom and some counterparts in Denmark say they've uncovered the reason for the mysterious movement of the magnetic pole, where basically north is at. Well, it's shifting more towards Siberia, and it's been doing that for some years. We used to discuss this on a semi-regular basis. But now, since we're in the era of propaganda towards the end of the world, maybe this is one of those things that is being added to the mix. Or it could be an actual reason why the world has gone haywire in general. Maybe the government sees some big event happening and they're kind of positioning everything they need to position before it just collapses. You know, because if any of this is true, it could explain a lot on how their behavior has been over the past, several weeks. And it could also explain some of the weird weather pattern that we're having, like having right here in the States. And of course, if you're familiar with Dutch Sense on YouTube, he has been showing that there's been a little bit more earthquakes in that ring of fire of late. So maybe something's happening. Maybe they want us to believe something's happening. Who knows at this point? There's too much information for us to all suck it all in and know what we're talking about anyways. But on the end game prophecy, folks, because we might as well talk about it, because if it's there, we might as well have a little fun with it, because we're now looking at the end game in Israel. Magnetic pole shift. We have a virus flowing through. We just had with the locusts. Now we have blood running in the rivers in Israel. Like I said before, folks, either somebody wants us to believe that God is coming or God is coming. That's up for you to decide. But can you imagine? People weren't even prepared for this little pandemic that has been fairly easy to live through. Can you imagine how they are going to react if something on a much more biblical nature happened? It's hard to prepare against everything, but we should all realize by now something bigger is probably coming. And we should continue to prepare for whatever that possible eventuality is. Even though we don't know what it might be, we all know by now that COVID-19 is not just about a virus anymore. If it ever was. Something bigger is happening. At the same time, on Friday, we had Donald Trump and the Space Force team unveil their new flag, and he also talks about a brand new super duper missile, because the Donald loves it that he's got such firepower at his disposal. I think he gets off on it. Now, I don't know if you knew this, but there are already 16,000 airmen and civilians that make up the U.S. Space Force. They are part of the technical team, and they will remain part of that force for the foreseeable future. And the Air Force, if you didn't know, used to have purview over this, but they've now developed that new branch, and well, we're going to be having our Space Force. It's interesting though, folks, those of you who have been following the John Lebang Show and the channel we have on YouTube, that in the official pictures, it was very interesting that 2 men and 1 woman were shown to be present for the unveiling. Well, Space Force, an interesting concept. And remember that it used to be under the Air Force, but now it's Space Force. Came to be under Donald Trump because, well, ladies and gentlemen, it's all supposed to happen right now. Maybe the Space Force is perfect. Maybe this pandemic, which is weakening many of our people's immune systems, and I know the downplayers don't, it's almost to the point that whatever somebody believes in the COVID-19 thing, they're so hard in that belief that you can't sway them anymore. And they were going to go that way regardless, because a lot of people do not want to believe this sort of thing. They don't care about it. You can already see that there are a lot of people who don't wear the mask when they go in public, and that's just fine, I guess, for them. More of your freedom. Just don't cough on me. Please don't cough on me. That's all. Please at least stay 6 feet away from me, because I don't want to get it. I don't have insurance. Some of us don't have insurance. A lot of people are out of work, they say. Okay? The economy is taking a hit. You notice they didn't shut it all down. They kept it going. So big deal. We're having the protests because people are upset because the lockdowns were so hard. Although I thought it was easy. They paid a bunch of people a bunch of money. I don't know what they did in other countries, but in the States they did. They gave everybody, well, not everybody, a lot of people money. And all through this, they want to be able to track anybody who is socializing, and maybe even, which is, it's going really Orwellian in my book. But they want to be able to tell you who you can socialize with via some tracking apps. Can you imagine the government now telling us what we can and cannot do when they're going to unleash us back in the public, but we can't hang out with who we want? See, they might have had a moral high ground for a minute there until they screwed up the lockdown. And what I mean by that is they didn't actually lock it down like they should have. If they were going to lock it down, which I don't even know if I want to call it that anymore. Because here in Michigan, no matter how much the complainers are complaining about their freedom being taken away, I can tell you from personal experience, there were people going to places that were not essential, that were still open because those businesses were deemed essential. And people were acting just like they were doing, or would do, any other spring and summer. Mostly spring, because we're not quite in summer. So the supposed lockdown, which was maybe a partial lockdown, more like a hard quarantine, that wasn't that hard. It was a limp quarantine, because a lot of people realized that it could affect them. But now that they're past the, we've gone way past the point of getting that curve just right. Now people are frustrated because they've been stuck home. And I began to realize this the other night. I'm surprised it didn't dawn on me, but I began to realize the other night that people don't want to be home. You spend all this money for a place to live in, to make your own, and people don't want to be home. They want to be out and about. And I realized, then why do you buy homes? Why do you even care? Just get yourself an apartment if you don't want to be home. But that was too hard for a lot of people. Maybe they don't like the people they're living with. Well, that's personal choices. And if you're living like that, if you're living with somebody that you don't like living with, then you have to examine that yourself, I guess. Because that's on you. And if you don't want to be home, these people, they just couldn't stay home. They'd be much better. And we've also realized what really runs the economy and what doesn't. Certain aspects of the economy that are sitting at home right now really don't run the economy, because the economy, which has taken a hit for sure, primarily because a bug has hit it, and secondarily because of the actions, the semi-ignorant, if not fully blown, stupid actions that not only the federal government but some state governors have taken. And on that note, we'll have to postpone what I was going to say until we get back from break, because that's where we're at right now, folks. And when we get back, we're going to talk about people who talk about other states that they don't live in.
Don't move a muscle.
The John Lebang Show will be right back.
With lots of fun and excitement. Yes!
Jim's Tuxedo and Menswear is your one-stop shop for tuxedos and men's quality suits. We go the extra mile to make sure your tux or suit is the perfect fit. Our huge selection is second to none in the state.
Looking good.
Outstanding customer service.
And we're located on Dix Toledo in Southgate. Call today, 734-285-3253.
Jim's Tuxedo and Menswear is the place to be.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming to Jim's Tuxedos and Menswear.
You know I had to come to the best.
That's right.
Hey, man, it's at the bottom of the hour, man. Do you know where your kids are, man?
If you want to contact the John Lebang Show, feel free to send an email to jlebang@live.com. And if you're on Twitter, look him up at John Lebang. And don't forget to go to his Facebook page at The John Lebang Show. Banger. Now here's John.
So I have this friend who lives in one of those states that's barely been hit by the boogie woogie virus. And so because they don't see the numbers that we see in other states, they are less concerned over the virus, and they start reading articles that come from these other states that the malpractice media engages in, propaganda. When you're not there, the media loves to direct your hearts and minds a certain way, so they print things, and that happens on the left and it happens on the right. It's just the thing that the media does. So this friend of mine, we're more of social media friends, and this person's also been on the show a couple times, continues to tag me practically on a daily basis about news coming out of Michigan. This, Governor Whitlis Gretchen did this, and Governor Whitlis Gretchen did that, this and that, and all these other things. And I'm tagged along with some other people that he's friends with that are from Michigan. And I don't know how many times I've had to debunk what he's linked me to, what he's tagged me for in these articles, in these questions. What's going on in Michigan? What this crazy... Bleh. And when he's the kind of guy that comes from a state that doesn't have as much problem with the COVID as other places do. And that's pretty apparent throughout the world. Some places have been hit harder than others with the COVID-19. The boogie woogie virus picks certain areas and it goes crazy. In other areas, it just says, I don't want to go there. That could be because of the different strains. It could be because of nothing. It could be all fake. If they say it's all fake, it's fake, right? The numbers. We've also heard that too, ladies and gentlemen. The numbers are not reported high enough or reported too high. So who do you believe? I don't know. You believe nobody. That's a good one to start. You don't believe anything. Getting back to my friend who believed all this other stuff and sent me the stuff, and I've had to debunk most of it. There's a couple times it was pretty accurate, but for the most part I was like, no, it's not like that. And then I'd have to explain how it actually is because I'm here. I don't like very often anyways, and because of this current dilemma, I'm going to do this less often. I'm not going to involve myself with other states' domestic issues. That's for the residents to handle. And if we all worried about our state and then D.C., and stop worrying about a state that's 500, 600, 700, maybe 1,000 miles away, because it has no effect on you, because it's a different state. So maybe we should all start doing that. Maybe we should all start focusing only on our state. Maybe there's not enough in his state to worry about. And I would imagine some of the more boring states are not going to have as much cool information, whether it be false or not, to get behind, to get all riled up about. So you got to go to news from a state that'll get you all fired up. So then you can comment on something you know nothing about because you're not there and you don't know how it is on the ground. And I wish people would stop doing that. Stop posting things they have and instead of tagging somebody in a social media post, send the person a message. Hey, what's up with this? Do you know about this? Because then I could debunk it. But then I would debunk it privately and you wouldn't annoy me as much as posting it like I'm supposed to be part of your post on that. So I debunk it publicly, which can be embarrassing here and there. Because I'm not about fake news. The best thing any of us can do is research what we read before we tell anything to anybody, to make sure we're not just passing along faulty information, half-cocked information like we've seen with the masks. You have all these accusations, yet from somebody who has plenty of experience and training in the matter, none of those, or very few of those accusations, are anywhere remotely accurate. But because people want to have their little agenda, whether it's right or wrong, if they feel it's right, that's all that matters to them. That's funny because I recently was told, you believe your truth, John. I didn't know we each had our own truths, man. Oh my God. I mean, I know we do. But the truth is something firm. The real truth, if we each have our own truth, it's not really truth, it's our own opinions based on whatever we believe those opinions are based on. We've become a crazy country, somewhat spoiled. In fact, not somewhat, incredibly spoiled. To think what we've gone through, which is nothing close to martial law, and even I thought early on that's where we were headed. Until that comes to fruition, I was a little premature on that. But what has happened in some of these... Now, I don't know what happened in New York because I'm not there. We just have to rely on the media's information. But I can tell you what happened in Michigan. The lockdown that supposedly was so awful wasn't that big of a lockdown. It was a soft quarantine. You just couldn't go out to those normal places, and some people who had small businesses, and that was a problem, that they allowed small businesses to take the hit and not large businesses. But some small businesses are out of commission right now, maybe forever. And that's a problem, that they allowed the large businesses that weren't even close to being essential, so they stayed open, but small businesses took a hit. So yeah, there's a problem there. And that's right down to the national and statewide response to the COVID-19, the boogie-woogie virus. Our governor, everybody thought she was so dictatorial. Our governor suggested, and they were pretty hard, you could get fined here and there if you did landscaping when you weren't supposed to, when they had shut that all down. I heard a couple people got fines. I don't know of anybody who got fines, so we can only go by what is available and reasonably determine one way or the other. Now, the barber who was threatened to be arrested, and the militia guys went out there, or whatever you want to call them, the people that went out there to protect him so he could run his own business. To me, that was great. That was Americans standing up for small business, and I was okay with that. Wasn't okay with the armed protesters going up to Lansing and pretending they were going to do something with their guns. I mean, there's no point. You're allowed to peacefully protest your government with whatever grievance you have, but that was more of an intimidating type thing. And even our state legislature, some reported that they backed off, they hid because of the protest. They probably, there's no reason to be hanging out in Lansing right now. They can only spend so much money because right now there's only so much money coming in. Because, there's certain parts of the economy that have been affected by this, no doubt about it. But you can't tell me that those people that are out of work and receiving a fairly generous unemployment check that are getting it, because there's some people, again, because it's overwhelmed, folks. The unemployment system was never intended to handle so many people out of work. But those people out of work, when you look at it, they're pretty much telling you these are people that don't need to be working. There's no reason for them to work. So those jobs, unfortunately, that must be hard to grasp as a person, that your job really doesn't matter. Everything can get along in life without your job. That must be a shock to a lot of people. It must bother them. And maybe that's why some of these people are going up to the state capitol to protest. And that's fine if you want to protest. And because of freedom, if you want to go there and you don't want to wear a mask, I guess that's fine too. I mean, I find it ignorant, but there's a lot of that in Michigan. That's one of the reasons why we were so bad early on. It's starting to cut back. But again, it wasn't like the lockdown was that harsh in the beginning, and then the people didn't listen. People didn't follow the suggestions of the government. So the government then had to forcibly do some things, increase the measures, make things harder on people. It wasn't because the government was outright dictatorial. People just don't listen around here, folks. People don't listen. People don't care. The IQ, the collective IQ of Michigan isn't what it is in some other states. Let's just say that. The most brilliant of the world do not come to Michigan. That's all I'm saying. Sure, we have some smart people, as all areas do. But you're not going to win, especially with the public education system, and in Detroit in particular. You're not going to get that many Rhodes Scholars out of Michigan. That's all I'm saying. Not many are going to go to Harvard or Yale. You'd be lucky if most of them go to some kind of community college or graduate, especially out of Detroit. So when you take all that into consideration, you realize that, well, the government took the actions that it needed to take because the people didn't listen to the recommendations, and they're not anymore. They haven't opened up officially the restrictions yet, and the roads are filled. People are out. They don't care anymore. And it wasn't even that hard. Can you imagine if we had a nuclear exchange or an EMP or something happened that damaged the power grid, or some natural event that cut off part of the country. Who knows, right? People couldn't even handle this. What I thought was, there were parts that were difficult, but that's because I was on the front lines. I was one of those essentials dealing with the mayhem involved with shutting everything down and people not wanting to be shut down. They couldn't listen. But my everyday life, that was easy. This quarantine, this lockdown, whatever you want to call it, that was so damn easy, and I don't know why people were protesting so much. If they really wanted a job, there were plenty of industries hiring because they were busy as frack. But they didn't want to do that. They begged to have their old life back. And now they think it's going to go back to normal, and, well, normal wasn't all that great. Be right back after this short time out.
Smoke 'em if you got 'em.
Because the John LeBang Show will be right back.
After this. That's guaranteed. Yes. Absolute Skin and Body Care, located in Livonia, Michigan. If you're in need of laser hair removal, skin care, laser tattoo removal, or laser hair regrowth, call Absolute Skin and Body Care. They're located at 37625 Ann Arbor Road, Suite 105 in Livonia, Michigan. Their phone number is 248-533-0448. Absolute Skin and Body Care. Give them a call. You're listening to the John LeBang Show. It's huge. Now I gotta tweet about it.
You know what I was thinking during the break? I wonder how many people actually learned something through all this quarantine lockdown situation. Are they going to be more prepared for the next eventuality that's going to be just around the corner? Whether it's 1 year, 2 years, 3 months, 5 years, that's really just around the corner. And I'm wondering how many people actually learned from this experience. Will they be prepared for the next one? Are they even worried about the next one? Do they think going back to normal will be going back to normal and all will be better and they'll just proceed with their life as if nothing happened? Because I think there's going to be a lot of people that didn't learn a damn thing through all this. They didn't learn a damn thing. They're not going to learn a damn thing. And the reason they get mad is because they weren't even prepared for it in the first place. And instead of directing their anger at themselves for not being prepared, they directed it at a government entity, as if they're supposed to be the ones protecting you. If you're waiting for the government to protect you, folks, you're going to be waiting an awful long time. And I don't understand why the American mindset is the way it is. I'm not worried about people in other countries at this point. Sure, we got to worry about China and the growing tensions between the U.S. and China. We also have to worry about what's going down in Venezuela, as the tensions seem to be rising there as well. And we're not that far off from some other tragedy happening. And we're in a weakened state. And I'm wondering, how many people out there are you ready? Can you literally look at yourself in the mirror and say, I learned a lot this time around. And I'm going to be more prepared. I'm going to be better prepared the next time something happens. Have you contemplated that, ladies and gentlemen? Are you ready for the next one? Because if this hasn't taught you anything, if you haven't seriously thought about changing how you move forward, the next one, which inevitably will come to some of us, if not all of us, how are you gonna deal with that one? And that's the That's the real conundrum we have in this country. We have too many schmeckles out there who will just move past this, leave it in the dust, and just go forward. March forward. And that was just a bad year. 2020 is a bad year. 21 will be better. 2021. Oh. And I can't wait for the people to get to Christmas and then New Year's and however we get there. Because that's still a long time away. But how we're going to celebrate going into the next year, we're going to be like, oh, 2020 sucked. It was terrible. See, 2020 is almost the perfect year for what is happening. It should give you, metaphorically, if anything, clearer vision that the economy was pretty weak for it to just fall apart over a little bug. That you can't trust the government. And we haven't even hit some of the hard stuff that I'm thinking is coming down the line. But people are going to be ready to run away from 2020 like that. Woo, let me get out of here and go to 2021. Because that's got to be a better year, man. It's got to be a better year. They'll be out there celebrating. We're not even to July 4th yet. It's been a long year, hasn't it? It has been a long year. And it's only May. It's not like it's just rushed up on us. Seems like it's almost twice as long. Hell, here in Michigan, we had winter up until about a week ago. Where it was snowing. We had snow in the middle of May. That goes back to what I was talking about earlier with the magnetic poles possibly shifting. That could change weather patterns. Which, folks, we've had some incredibly weird weather patterns this year. Not to mention that the sun has been less active, so that's going to affect current temperatures on the globe as well, which affects weather patterns. That's all connected. You guys are worried about, y'all worried about fossil fuels and cows farting and stuff, and we got magnetic poles wanting to shift, and the sun is being less active. And those are probably going to affect weather patterns and the temperature a lot more than fossil fuels. But, keep sending Gretchen. Is her name Gretchen too? The little girl? I don't know. Keep sending that little girl out there to scream at their parents because, their parents are bad for wanting to use a car and eat meat. Those things are bad. We haven't talked about this much, but we've had an increased military presence near China, and tensions continue to grow. There was a exercise that began in China, which they're going to carry on for 2.5 months. And we talked about that in the Daily Brew some days ago. They're going to be holding that in the Bahai Bay for 2.5 months. They're going to be holding war exercises, military exercises. At the same time, the U.S. and China relations are strained, and there are increased military activity on both sides. Yeah. I'm sure it's just an exercise, and I'm sure one that takes 2.5 months is nothing, right? Of course, the U.S. itself held an exercise last week. U.S. Air Force and Marines conducted training exercises in the area with 3 submarines joining ships and aircraft in the nearby Philippine Sea. These actions are thought to be a reaction to Chinese harassment of U.S. ships drilling for resources in nearby waters. Of course, that's not really making a whole lot of the malpractice media, but things continue to heat up on the China front. And it's only going to be a matter of time before things get out of hand. Another thing that should make you go, especially all you Trump supporters, the Donald, he named former pharma exec to lead the vaccination effort. The same vaccination effort that Trump says he will get the military to handle that. Did you miss that, folks? Did you miss the fact that Trump said he would mobilize the military to distribute coronavirus vaccine when it's ready? His words, we're mobilizing our military and other forces, but we're mobilizing our military on the basis that we do have a vaccine. You know, it's a massive job to give this vaccine. Our military is now being mobilized, so at the end of the year, we're going to be able to give it to a lot of people very, very rapidly. A lot of people. It'll be voluntary at first, ladies and gentlemen, but once all the volunteers are done, they're going to say, well, you probably can't shop or you probably can't travel unless you have the vaccine. So if you want to go anywhere or buy food or buy anything, then you're going to have to get this shot. And because you can't vaccinate against something that mutates as often as this does, you're going to have to get a lot of shots, probably over the next few coming years. And I'm sure those people that want to rush out of 2020 are just going to love what's coming down the road in 2021. Because the number 21, well, 21's an interesting number that we'll discuss in a later video. I know I've been promising one. It's just that we're extremely busy right now, folks, between the shows that we do, which are 3 of them, and preparing for the summer and our gardening, as well as dealing with all the other activities, including being essential, that we have to deal with. So please bear with us as we work on getting that report to you. And hopefully it'll be soon, or sooner rather than later, because it really should be put out soon, just because you guys are going to need to know this information. And with that being said, folks, I want to thank you all for tuning in. And until the vibrations of my vocal cords reach your ears again, folks, if you want to catch up on what we're doing, go to the website, www.jlebang.com. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time, right here on The John LeBang Show. Signing off. T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We have liftoff. Tune in again next week. Same time, same space, same station.
Resistance is futile.
Because Gretless Witchin, or Witless Gretchen, is doing a good job being vague, just like the president. The powers that be, who have created the conditions for all of this to happen, are now setting up the scenario for a lot of people to go hungry.